I'm Lexi Hornbeck with Copper Bay, Leasing Marketing Manager. Today we're going to be talking with Brian Farkas. He's the Workforce Housing Director through Allen Edwin, who we partner with on the construction side of things.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been with Allen Edwin Homes for about 2 years now. Prior to that, I was with the City of Detroit in the Mayor's office doing the demolition program, and got recruited here to work with municipalities across the state to set up deals to provide houses like this for the workforce housing segment.
Perfect. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about how you started over in Detroit, kind of what that looked like, and then
Yeah.
how you sort of came and had spearheaded the whole workforce housing development part through Allen Edwin.
So I got involved in Detroit. I came from the Attorney General's office, so I'm a lawyer by trade. And when Detroit was going through its bankruptcy and the blight, I just became obsessed with how the right demolition on the right neighborhood on the right block could really transform a neighborhood, transform a block. And so I did that for about 10 years. We took down about 25,000 homes, worked with Mayor Duggan, worked with a phenomenal team there, and then got recruited to join Allen Edwin's team, which I'd known about for about 13 years. And the way they build houses is just, I'm obsessed with it. 3 homes a day, the smooth production, the high quality and the low cost is really exciting.
Dive a little more into why you were so intrigued on that part.
So when you're demolishing a house, you have surges and work, right? So you'll have 50 houses one week, 0 the next, 120 houses one week, and that's really tough for the contractors to keep up with production. It's tough to hire people. It's tough to buy machinery. It's tough to really kind of meet that up and down sawtooth production model. When I became aware of Allen Edwin's model of 3 homes a day and how incredibly smooth the production process was, it really clicked with me. The use of the app for building the homes, kind of working with the contractors, excuse me, to meet them where they are, and say, okay, you're going to be working for the next 3 years on these houses. Go. You don't have to bid on work. You don't have to worry about invoicing. You don't have to do that. It's all done through the app. You really kind of, have to think, what else is this company doing that can do this so smart?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then you get involved with the workforce housing, and obviously Copper Bay has taken over the management side of that.
Excellent partners to have.
Thank you.
For us. Yep.
Yeah. And so we took over our first workforce housing, leases went up this year. It was back in March, but you've been with us for 2 years. So I kind of want you to explain the back end of what kind of work has gone into the fruition of, I believe it was Jackson was our first, actually it was White Cloud.
White Cloud,
so
yep.
White Cloud was our first official rollout of our first rental units through workforce housing.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to hear on the back end of all the work that has gone into getting it to where it is today.
Yeah, so we're on the cutting edge at Allen Edwin and Copper Bay. We're the first builder in the state to have these workforce housing projects go vertical. And when I started 2 years ago, the state law was just about to be passed that allowed for us to do this. And on the back page of the legislation that I was reading had a list of supporters. And I noticed there was a couple municipalities on there, White Cloud being one of them. So if you're looking to generate business, go where they already support the effort. Mm-hmm. So I made a cold call to April Storms up in White Cloud, got a meeting with her, and she was incredibly supportive. And they had one city lot that they owned, and they had 7 other lots that were owned by a private developer. She introduced me to the developer. Over the course of, I'd say, 6 to 8 months, we got the first workforce housing ordinance passed, and then we bought the land. And what was really great about it is because of the infrastructure there, we probably only had a runway for about 3 houses. Then, out of nowhere, the Fremont Area Community Foundation came to the table with a $150,000 grant, $30,000 for 5 lots, and allowed us to build 8 homes. So we have 8 homes in total in White Cloud, and the first families just started moving in. And about a month ago, I was able to walk through the house with the family, and it was incredibly rewarding to see. I've torn down a lot of homes and saw the impact that had on neighbors, but to walk through a house that I helped build and seeing, the family and they're talking about Christmas morning and Easter mornings, and, this family was looking at, that didn't have any options, and now they live a 3-minute walk away from school, was pretty exciting. And so we've got White Cloud was the first project like that. Jackson was right behind it. Hillsdale, Niles, Durand up in Shiawassee. We've got a lot of great cities in the pipeline, and we're really excited.
So to dive a little bit deeper into White Cloud, you've been in the demolition business, but when was the last time? This was such a cool fact that you taught me. When was the last time a house was built in White Cloud prior to us coming in?
That's a great question. Over 30 years.
That's insane.
Yeah. So that's in a lot of the markets we're playing in, there's been pent up demand, and the housing market is made up of used homes that are 30, 40, 50 years old. And so to come in and offer products like this, we can go in and really change the narrative in these towns, in these cities across the state.
Yeah. Awesome. Because something that a lot of people like don't know, like not just workforce housing, but in the real estate market in general, like in 2008, banks stopped lending to builders. And so that's why a lot of builders did end up going under. So there's going to be huge areas where that supply and demand just they didn't make up for the homes that weren't being built throughout 2008 to now.
Yeah.
Which is like really cool that we're getting to see firsthand a lot of these communities where we're coming in, partnering with you guys, and then we're able to help families kind of flourish in what you would say they didn't really have any other options. So we'll touch on White Cloud again. You and I have worked together with you had spearheaded the New York Times, but I was able to help you guys with a few stories, one specifically that's really kind of touched.
I think you're downplaying your role a little bit, and I want to hit on this because, the New York Times called our office. They were put in touch with me because they were doing workforce housing. And my experience is, you can hear me talk all day. Let's go walk through a house and let's go walk through a family that's impacted with it. And you can ask the family any questions you want. And so the reporter was great. The first thing is I need a family, right? And so my boss, Tom, told me that a couple of the houses in White Cloud have been leased up. I called you and you're like, I've got the perfect family. And you reached out to them, gave me their cell phone number. We had a tour of the house and it was perfect. And that, being on your game like that, because the family originally didn't qualify, they made too much money.
Dive into that.
Yeah.
So dive into that a little bit, and then we'll go even deeper into like what happened when we finally got everything.
Yeah. So I think the first thing we should probably go back to is define what missing middle and workforce housing is.
Yeah.
This is not low income housing. There's a place for that in the market, and it's very necessary. This program is geared towards the missing middle, right? Workforce housing. So what does that mean? Every county in the state has an area median income, an AMI. And the AMI can be 20%, 30%, 150% of the area median income. What it means is basically, what do you make in relation to other residents of that county? The missing middle is geared towards, and workforce housing is geared specifically towards the 80 to 120% of the AMI. What does that mean?
Well, when you were telling me earlier, because like just to put into layman's terms too, and it was like a really good way how you explained it prior to us even hitting record on the camera was, you said, the middle class typically has not needed help.
Yes.
But as we've seen inflation and interest rates driving prices for construction
and rents, the lack of builders constrains supply.
Correct. And so like that, like we always say 80 to 120%, but really it is the middle class.
Yeah.
And kind of take it from there and keep going.
Yeah,
with what you're saying.
It's teachers, it's firefighters, it's police officers, mechanics, Amazon delivery drivers. It's the workforce that powers our economy is really struggling to find places to live. Mm-hmm. And so the state legislature did an excellent job in passing these bills, the TIF bill and the pilot. And being the state's largest home builder, we're able to take advantage of them across the state. And so White Cloud being the first example, you've got a family with 3 young kids that's living in their grandparents' basement with their parents, and they can't find a place to live, and they make north of $100,000 a year. And they originally called you up before Mishta updated the numbers, and they made too much. Mm-hmm. Luckily, we have a great leasing agent, and when they qualified, you were on your game and called them back, and were able to get them in a home. And they're there today. I saw their car parked in their driveway yesterday.
That's good that they're still there.
Yeah.
It was something that, they called in, and I heard the need, and it was really tough because completely out of our hands, right?
Yeah, the cap is the cap.
When it comes to workforce housing, like I would love to be able to get every single person, and the worst call I have to make is you make too much.
Yeah.
Because then it's you make too much, or you don't make enough for market rate. So you're kind of
Yeah.
that missing middle, right? And I think it was, they had talked to me about a month prior. So they reached out to me in April.
Yeah.
Mission updates. Typically it's like May 15th, that week every
Yep.
year. So when it comes out, I remember just kind of like twiddling my thumbs waiting, and I got the email and I was like, oh my goodness, I think it's actually going to work. So I reran their stuff through underwriting. We were able to get them in, and that was,
So what was that phone call like when you called her up?
well, I was the most excited, and I don't think she was expecting a call from me at all, because
Yeah.
you get a denial letter from us, and it is what it is, and we give you your explanations, and it's not something that you can get a cosigner on, because once again, it's the actual
The government
household. It's the household.
Yeah.
We can't have people on the outsides. It's very specific. So she probably was like, why is she calling me again? I already got the bad news. I don't need it again. But I called and I was like, hey, like, do you want the good news or the good news? And she's just like, what? And I was able to say, I'll give you like the easy news. The easy news is Mishta updated their website. You probably have no idea what that means. But the other good news is your guys' application is now approved and you don't need to reapply. And it was like silence. And I thought that the call had ended. I'm a habitual phone dyer kind of person. And then it just turned to cries. And I was like, it was one of those moments where I was like, this is why I love my job.
Yeah.
We get to take people and help them create memories in our homes. Copper Bay used to be SWAN, which used to stand for Sleep Well at Night. And to this day, like, I really truly believe that like the backbone of why we do it is so families can sleep well at night,
Yeah.
knowing that they have an amazing company behind them and a great roof over their heads.
Yeah. And to that note too, one thing I learned in Detroit was outside of your family's immediate health and well-being, there's not a bigger stressor than housing.
Right.
In Detroit, it was if the house next to you is burnt out and blighted, that's the thing you worry most about besides your family. And now in the new construction business, it's, are you in a home like this, right? Are you living in your in-laws' basement, or do you have your own home? And that is the biggest stressor.
Yeah. And then like, we always, it's tough because people, my parents' generation, they're like, you need to own a house. I owned a house when I was 20, right? It's just not the same anymore.
Yeah.
And so being able to offer something where people can get into homes, like, yes, is the rent a little bit, it's not even high. It's the same as a mortgage. But, with interest rates, you're getting more house for rent than you would be able to with purchase, and they're new, and you're saving money on utilities, and you don't have to fix the maintenance issues. And it's just, there's a whole list of things that Copper Bay is kind of doing on the back end that's so amazing. And then just the workforce housing and the fact that we're really the only companies right now that are super highly developing areas.
Yeah.
You said, obviously, we've got White Cloud was our first. We dabbled into Jackson. We have how many units on the back end that are going to be coming there?
In Jackson, over the course of the next couple of years, we're looking at upwards of 100.
Yeah, and we just leased the first 9.
That's
I
awesome.
believe. Yeah, so the first 9 were sold out in Jackson until you give me more.
Perfect.
I know we're working with the city on that one. And then Hillsdale was the next one. We have 2 left.
Yep.
We'll be sold out on that phase.
And that one is great because Hillsdale, I heard a stat that the county of Hillsdale, so not just the city, but the county of Hillsdale, I think in the last 10 years has had 40 new homes built.
Just touching back on the fact that like just builders weren't building.
Yeah, and so what we're able to do, the Hillsdale project is exciting because it's kind of a 2-phase project. We use the pilot legislation in the front end with the duplexes.
Explain that.
So pilot is so the non-homestead property taxes add about $600 to $800 a month to our costs as a company, which means if we're leasing a house for $2,500 a month, a big chunk of that, pushing you over the $2,000 a month, is the taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So in towns that's where there's local support and it has to be approved by the mayor and the city council, we can have an arrangement where we are paying 10% of our rent to the city rather than the non-homestead property taxes. So it lowers our rent essentially. If we charge $1,700 a month, our taxes are $170. It really allows us to build a house like this that we would offer market rate for sale or market rate for lease. The exact same product we can deliver because of the taxes to that workforce housing sweet spot.
Yeah, which is super cool because a lot of people usually question like, well, where are you even getting these prices? Like, if you can build something for this, why isn't the market rate that? And it's just, it's a completely different, profit and loss sheet at that point. Kind of being able to take that money and how that we're able to construct it, there is a completely different finance behind the end.
And so now, having done the first phase of Hillsdale, we're looking at opening up the back part of the property that's got room for 61 additional units.
And you said this is under the flight?
This is under the TIF.
The TIF, the pilot, not the fight.
Yeah, exactly. So it's tax increment financing, which basically is a incentive that we pay for. So we invest the money up front. When the tax revenue from the property goes up, we're able to recapture a portion of that to pay ourselves back for the infrastructure, basically turning on a piece of property that has been stagnant for about 20 years.
Yeah. And so speaking on specifically that, I remember also a few weeks ago, you and I were talking, and it was about how, when you were in Detroit and you would have contractors bid, and then certain contractors would win the bid. Explain to me how you used to look at those projects versus how you feel walking in and knowing that Allen Edwin's going to be the contractor on these projects and how quickly things start.
Yeah, no. So in the city of Detroit, we had a public purchasing department, and you'd have, 25 different demo contractors bidding on work. You were held to whichever contractor won the bid through the public bidding process. You were held to their standards and their work. And so some were great and would start working right away, and there would be no drama. Others would sit on the contract for months. And so one thing that's interesting and fun to do now that I'm on the private sector side, when I'm talking to the different municipal leaders, is to say, trust me, I wish there was a contractor like this when I was in Detroit, because once we close on the land, we start building almost immediately. So White Cloud was blown away by it, that we literally had our groundbreaking with the excavator behind us. We did the same thing at Hillsdale, that the documents are signed and we start building. We've got a machine that's been finely tuned over 30 years with great trade partners, and we're able to start right away and deliver these products. And I think our average time from groundbreaking to having a house like this is about 6 to 7 months, and municipalities have never seen that. Yesterday I was up in White Cloud and we had neighboring communities come, and there's no better sales brochure than one of our homes.
Right.
And so having Big Rapids and Fremont and different municipalities were asking, hey, we've got more lots in our community. Can you come build there? Because when you're in government, there's a frustration of, leaders have a vision of what they want to do, but you're totally relying on contractors. And so I think having a private sector partner like us means a lot to these communities.
Super exciting. Got White Cloud, Jackson, Hillsdale. Touch on a few more of the communities that we have, that you've been working on over the last year that are going to start coming out this year and into 2025, where we're going to start being able to see pretty big workforce housing communities across the state.
So yeah, we're looking at White Cloud, Hillsdale, Jackson, Muskegon, Niles, even South Bend, Indiana. Mm-hmm. We're doing a project down there, urban infill. They don't have the same laws as Michigan, obviously, but working with a great team down there, and they're able to give us a grant. So I think we're going to be delivering 17 units of workforce housing right in the heart of downtown South Bend, which is close to my favorite place in the world, University of Notre Dame.
Oh gosh, so it's going to be amazing, because we also just had all of our market rate South Bend units. Yeah. They flew off the market. I'd list one, lease three, without the other two being even listed on the website, because we had such an influx of need down there. This is going to be so cool for the city of South Bend. You have, looking at your sheet, you have way more than the three you just mentioned. So continue on.
A deal in Lapeer, Springfield, Langsburg, and then our TIF projects are coming in. We've got the Traverse City one. It's a joint venture. We're looking at 2 in Portage. We're looking at 1 in Allegan, another 1 in Portage. Hillsdale, obviously, we talked about. Fremont, Three Rivers, Sturgis, Durand, Coldwater, Jackson we've mentioned. So we've got quite a roster coming to fruition right now.
Yeah, we've got a lot. And then that's just the stuff that's coming, and not to even mention stuff that you're working on that we can't talk about yet.
And the cool thing is when you build homes like this in a new market, a lot of times what we're doing is we're bringing in the neighboring communities to see what's going on, and it leads to more leads and more projects and more business. So the snowball effect, I think, is just getting started. And we're really excited with what the runway we have in front of us.
It's going to be really crazy. I want to touch on the Traverse City project.
Yes.
Because we're kind of able to touch a little bit on that, the the phone call that I got to make on the family that originally wasn't going to be able to come through with us, then we were able to make it happen because of the MISHDA update. But I want you to just touch on that project and how you kind of overcame a few objections. Number one, being from your background in government and working for the mayor's office to like now where we're at, and how big of an impact this is going to be in Traverse City as well.
Yeah. So as we've talked about, there's a lot of headwinds against builders right now. And one of the tools we're able to use to keep projects moving is the tax increment financing. And that requires a series of government approvals. And the last step in the Traverse City area was the county commission. And we had very, very strong support from the local partners up there. Beth Friend and East Bay Township, just great project partners. We negotiated back and forth. They want us to add sidewalks. We did, and it really is helping to complete a whole school, safe sidewalks to school program up there, trail system. But at the county commission level, there was some discussion on, they preferred us to set our income at 120% AMI, but our rents are capped at 100% AMI. So we're charging lower rents up there for the 20% workforce housing segment of this 170 unit development.
But we're allowing people to make a little bit more than
to make a little bit more. And one of the county commissioners, I think, had a very fair question of, is this a windfall to those people that fall into the 120% income, but now they're paying lower rent? And the conversation just went back to White Cloud and told them the story of that family. And we're not talking about people making way too much money. It's aggressively middle class.
And it's within it's like within a couple thousand
dollars.
When you say 100 to 120, it sounds like it's going to be such a significant jump. Yeah. But that specific family, we're talking, they were $3,000 over.
Yeah.
The 100% AMI.
Yeah, and so
that we had to straight on.
To have the experience that we have now, and to have stories like that, I think it really crystallized what we were dealing with. And I'm happy to report that the Grand Traverse County Commission unanimously passed our application for the tax increment financing.
So amazing.
Yeah.
So that's really awesome. And just kind of being able to watch, from the outside what you're doing on the back end, and being able to like you said, have these stories has been like so cool. And I'm really excited to see what we're going to be able to do going forward as well. But thank you so much for coming in and kind of diving into this, because a lot of people have just had a lot of questions.
Yeah. On
where the pricing comes from and how do we do this. And I think that you're just so knowledgeable, because this is the world you live in.
Yeah, I love it. It's a lot of fun. I think for the next episode, I'd like to have us get some city leadership in here and city managers to tell their story. Yeah, I think that, especially if we do this sometime, towards the new year, we'll have quite a few different municipalities that maybe we could get together in one of our homes to meet in the middle and talk about the missing middle and how it's really helped their communities specifically, and working with you from the beginning to end. Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Thank you. No problem. Yes.